Alright, so this is John. John, thank you for letting me take a photo and video of you. So, John has ever so slight external tibial torsion. And so, how I was able to notice this, I just kind of looked at the midline of his patella and then the midline of where his medial and lateral malleolus is, roughly there. And then if you draw a straight line coming from the patella, you see that the midline of tib fib or midline of medial and lateral malleolus kind of falls a little bit lateral to his patella. So he just has the slightest bit of external tibial torsion or twisting of his tibia. So this is going to contribute to a very small toed out posture. Toe out is normal anyways, like 5 degrees of toe out is pretty much the norm. So we'll see during his gait where this occurs. So this is the frontal view. You can already see his toed out posture at heel strike and loading response, and he kind of maintains that everted posture during swing as well. So let's get him coming back. So let's get him a little closer. So heel strike, you can see that forefoot is abducted relative to midline of the tibia, and he maintains that in loading response. There again, you can see, So in mid stance, his patella falls a little bit medial, and during swing he maintains an everted posture. He likes to keep his knee in the sagittal plane as usual, so whatever the foot does, or basically the distal segment does, is just as a result of keeping the knee anteriorly. And let's see his sagittal view. So what I did notice is that John has a little bit of a premature heel rise, so you can see that left foot. So check his left heel coming up off the ground in what should be his mid stance. Just comes up early. Typically you wouldn't see a heel rise until about just before initial contact, so terminal swing pretty much. But it's already pretty much planar flexed, or at least neutral, that position. You'll see his right, so heel strike, we expect that to be 0 at the talar curl joint, and then a little bit planar flexion, normal. The knee has a nice flexed posture, so about 15 maybe. Mid stance, maybe like 5 degrees of knee flexion, maybe a little bit of dorsiflexion, so let's say like 5 degrees dorsiflexion, and then as he comes into contralateral mid-swing, you see that heel, that right heel wants to come up pretty early, and this can be a result of decreased dorsiflexion. So whether that is a tight calf, whether that's the tight talar curl joint, you don't really know until you get him on the table and test it. But my assumption is that he has a tight posterior chain, so tight gastroc soleus, Achilles tendon, whatever. The ankle doesn't really like to go into dorsiflexion during terminal stance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slow that down with eccentric plantar flexion and then turn on concentric plantar flexion early. So during contralateral mid-swing, what would be my mid-stance, I'm coming up into heel off early. So heel off and toe off. So I'm going to kick on my concentric plantar flexion contraction a little bit early. So you will see on like the EMG graph, his EMG would just show the gastroc soleus kind of occur earlier in the gait cycle. And then a nickname for this would just be kind of like a bouncy or springy gait. So this can be from tight calves, or just, we could say the calves or the posterior compartment is dominant. Is it a deficit? Not really. He's still able to advance the tibia, but one of his strategies to advance the tibia over the talus is to evert the foot, because that is one of the compensations for lack of dorsiflexion. So you'll see in the frontal view, instead of dorsiflexing, he comes into eversion a little bit during that terminal stance on the right. Eversion. And then instead of dorsiflexing the foot during swing, eversion. So he kind of just stays in that abducted or everted position throughout the gait cycle. And could that just be because a little bit of external tibial torsion? Absolutely. Could that just be maybe from lack of dorsiflexion through the talar curl joint? Absolutely. You won't know until you do a proper examination on the table. But these are just observations.